Right, very welcome everybody, and very welcome to Venerable Pannavati, and so wonderful that you could join us today. I feel very honored to finally meet you. I have been wanting to come your way for quite some time, but North Carolina is a bit out of the way for me.
That's what everybody tells me.
Yes.
I think everybody's just sent that excuse off to each other. So it feels a little lonely down here sometimes. But I've taken the position that people are my forest, and so I have plenty of company.
Wonderful. I'll just introduce you a little bit to our group. There's about 40 people at the moment, and from all over Europe. So we have a small group usually that comes together in the morning and evenings for chanting and meditation. But now there's a few more people, and well, there's people from England, from Holland, Belgium, France, Spain, Austria, Germany, Sweden, Norway, and also some from America, and I can see, and quite often we also get people from India, but I'm not entirely sure if there are any here at the moment, but it might be because of the time difference that's a bit inconvenient right now. So yeah, let me just introduce Venerable Pannavati to you, and hold on, I need to move around here a little bit. Yes. So Venerable Pannavati is the co-founder and co-spiritual director of Heartwood Refuge in North Carolina. And I've posted the link to the to Heartwood Refuge on our website if you're interested. And if you're interested in going there at some point, I don't know how travel arrangements are in the US. We are not allowed to go to the US yet, most of it. But in case you have some time in the future, then please consider that one. So she's ensuring the community's sustainability, longevity, and continuity of vision and mission. And she's also president of a Treasure Human Life Foundation. She was ordained in the Theravada, Chan, and Mahayana traditions with Vajrayana empowerments and transmissions from Roshi Bernie Glassman of Zen Peacemakers. Venerable Pannavati was formerly a Christian pastor and co-founder and co-abbot of Embracing Simplicity Hermitage and Meditation Center. So she's an international teacher who advocates on behalf of disempowered women and youth globally, and insists on equality and respect in Buddhist life for both female monastics and lay sangha. She's both contemplative and empowered for compassionate services. She was a 2008 recipient of the Outstanding Buddhist Women's Award and currently serves as vice president of the US chapter of the Global Buddhist Association. Although Venerable Pannavati travels extensively, she offers Dharma talks and meditation at Heartwood Refuge on a regular basis. So I will post the link to the website later on afterwards. So after this very brief introduction, Venerable, I'll give the floor to you.
Okay, thank you so much. I'd like to change the format just a little bit today because we're talking about, a very present on our hearts and mind topic that has global implications. And I would like for us to invite the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and the 10 directions to be in assembly with us as we kind of walk through this. I generally do not open with some of our normal chanting because I'm usually speaking to people who are more in the Western mindfulness movement, but I think we could do to invite a little help from the Mahasattvas today. So And I want to send my greetings to all of you in Sweden and Norway and Holland, Germany, France, India, Spain, and of course in Belgium. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. So I think I went to your website, and your website just about says it all. I was so pleased to read your website and to look at the ways that you bring us in to how we should be as Dharmic practitioners. I'm speaking to Buddhists here today. If some of you are not, that's okay. But I'm going to speak from the standpoint of the Dhamma to help us to understand. On your website, you said, make every thought a thought of freedom. Walk the path to its end. And so in our discussion today, I'd like to talk about that higher path. The Buddha called it the way leading upward, because there is something about approaching all circumstances. I have a master, and he says all worldly dhammas are Buddha Dhamma. That means that no matter what circumstance we find ourselves in, no matter what is happening around us that requires a response for us, we can find ourselves on the Dhamma map. You are here. And we can look and know where our goal is. It's there, and there is a way for us to get from where we are to that goal. And so, keeping that in mind, I'd like for us to draw upon our highest aspirations. I tell you the truth, I'm never ever nervous about giving a Dhamma talk. I never have any trepidation about what I'll say, but I actually had some at this time. One reason is because when a Black person speaks, we're speaking for everybody. When a white person speaks, they are speaking individually. And so there is some sense of a pressure coming in from the inside that you have to make sure that what you say, meets what is the acceptable response coming from a Black person. And that's not going to happen today. So it may not, may throw you off a little bit in your mind as what we are accustomed to seeing and understanding. That's why it's so wonderful when the Buddha talks to us about the sense bases and the information that we take in from the sense gates, that which we see and hear and taste and touch and smell, and he includes thinking, that which we think. So we can often admit to or recognize that we are influenced by something that we see or that we hear, but not so much uh, a conscious recognition of the influences that we take in through what we think. And I love the Dharmic teaching because it takes us right there as where we have to do our work. He said, mind is chief, mind made are we. Whatever we think and ponder on becomes the inclination of the mind. He abused me, he beat me, he robbed me. Those who harbor such thoughts in them, anger shall never be appeased. He abused me, he beat me, he robbed me. And those who do not harbor such thoughts in them, anger shall be appeased. He said, anger is never overcome, or hatred is never overcome by hatred, but by non-hatred. Now, if he had used the word love, I could still be confused. Hatred is never overcome by hatred, it's only overcome by love. Because then I have to go into an exploration of what love is, and I'd have to understand that all together before I could put the two together and start to try to find some relief or release from the suffering. But he says it's overcome by non-hatred. So whatever thoughts I have going on in my mind, if I look to what is the opposite of that thought at this moment, I'm entering the territory of non-hatred. If I have anger in my heart or in my mind right now, I know what that feels like. I'm experiencing it. What would be the exact opposite direction, even though you might say that doesn't make sense, this is not the time for that conversation, we can say all of those things. If we are ordinary, he calls them ordinary, I'm not saying it, the Buddha said it, ordinary, untaught, run-of-the-mill individuals. But if we aspire to be of the lineage of the awakened ones, then there's a different kind of mind that we have to cultivate and a different kind of heart that we have to develop. And he says that you have to have the confidence that if you do develop along these lines, that they have a certain kind of power, the power to set one free and the power to also set others free. Now, whether the others choose to be free is their choice, but certainly one can find freedom within oneself. And when that sting or that pain is removed, it helps to qualify us to be one who would be a peacemaker and a peacekeeper, one who can use all of their faculties to help bring about change for the good. So I'm not saying that there should not be a sense of outrage. All I'm saying is that outrage can be tempered by understanding how things are. And once one understands the outrage, truly understands, the outrage is gone, and what's left is enough availability of strength and clarity and compassion to be part of the solution. And that's what we need today, because we're in a very pivotal moment. And the thoughts that we think right now set us up for the actions that we will take in the future. Excuse me, for the actions that we will take in the future. And so I wanted to uplift us today. I didn't see the blurb that was written. It's so hard to get in touch with me. I'm so sorry. But I didn't see the blurb that was written before it was posted. And I know once something's posted, oh, just leave it like it is. But it said that Pannavati will give the Buddhist perspective on the Black Lives Matter. Well, that's not exactly what I would like to do. I would like to give the Buddhist perspective on greed, hatred, and delusion. And one can judge for themselves then how they will take the movement, what and how they will relate to what is happening. The movement is nothing in and of itself. It's just what each individual in that movement does that makes the difference. So we can run the whole gamut of supports for the movement, but some can be coming from one point of view and others coming from another point of view. The number one thing is where are you coming from? And number two is, what are your skills and capacity and capabilities? And number three I'm sorry, Kay, could you, my battery is running low. I'm sorry, I've been on all day since 10 this morning, and I need you.
Where's your?
I'll get it. If you would just meditate for 2 minutes, I'll be right back. Oh, you don't have it plugged in. Got to put it on the floor, okay? Thank you. And so our individual capacities will determine what will become of this movement and what we make of it. It's the individuals who are participating in the activities, who are spokesmen or spokespersons for the aim and the goal that will, and how they walk that out, that will make the difference in this movement. And what I find so interesting is that it is taken hold all over the globe. Here in America, I could speak about being a Black person, and I can see the inequities between Black and white. But I can be in India and I can see the disparities between the Brahmin class, or all of the caste system, and the untouchables or the Dalits. You know, if I go back in history, it doesn't have to be a Black and white issue. It could be tribe against tribe. The two the Tutsis against the, what's, Panyadeep, you know the name of the other tribe that they were fighting, and they could just basically annihilated uh, uh, another tribe. So it's not so much that, although it could feel very personal to me if I chose to make it personal. And there have been times in my life that I did. I'm a product of the 60s, and we had a nonviolent movement. But you know, I wasn't particularly nonviolent at that time. I wasn't inclined to let them sick dogs or water hose on me. If I went out, I was going out to fight, because that's where my anger was. So I decided it'd be best for me not to go and be part of a nonprofit, a nonviolent rally, because I wasn't inclined to be nonviolent. But I'm so glad that I found the Dhamma, because from the beginning, you know, even as a Christian, my heart was towards a certain thing, but I didn't have the skills to walk out what the heart dictated. But through the Dhamma, I developed the skills so that the heart and the mind can come together and agree. That's the wonderful thing. I used to be dinged all the time because I wouldn't say anything contrary about Christianity, but it was a great boon and a great help for me, because I learned some things about the love walk. And I find many who come into the Dhamma who haven't had a kind of devotional background struggle a little bit with the concepts of the heart over the intellect. And truly, the Buddha did say that this is a Dhamma, you know, that is reasonable. We can reason through it. He said, but it could not be completely apprehended by mere reason alone. And so there's something that needs to be added to, or there's a lens through which we have to understand reason, that we have to understand mindfulness, that we have to understand wisdom, and it's through the lens of compassion and considering the other as oneself. And that in Christianity, we would have called the love walk. So I'd like to stay on that side of the uh, discussion today, going again to your own quote on your website: make every thought a thought of freedom, walk the path to its end. And what I have found is that within the Dharmic community, there's been a great amount of outrage, so much so. And there's been a lot of talk of, they have a term for it. I think it's called spiritual bypass. Yeah. And so, and there's a definition of spiritual bypass, but you know, we come up with words and phrases and we define what they mean. And it's the common definition of spiritual bypass to use one's spirituality to not deal with the issues, in short. But I see spiritual bypass in an entirely different way. I see us having being in certain agreement about how we should be, how we should think, how we should act in the world, until something gets close to home. And then that kind of goes out the window. But my question is, can you still hold on to those things that you embrace, you know, when the going gets rough, when you're in the midst of the fire? and if you can't, then to me that's spiritual bypass. So at a time when somebody's beating him, the Buddha said, even if a robber were to sever you limb by limb and you harbored any hatred towards him, he said, you would not be my disciple. Now that's the bar, that's the standard that he set. I might not be able to reach up to that bar, but let's not lower the standard. Leave the standard and the bar where it is, and then we can know where we are and what we have to work towards to come up to the fullness of the measure of the stature of one who would change lineages from an ordinary human being to that of the Buddhas. This is where we should be putting our effort. We have so much time to be at home, to be alone, doing our practice. And what are we doing with that time? I understand it's important for us to stay up, got to keep up with what's happening in the world, but we don't have to watch 12 hours of news and watch pictures and videos of brutality over and over and over again, because that puts into our mind, a leaning towards and a great aversion to it. I say we need to watch it, we need to see it, because sometimes these things, I had someone in my Sangha, and they said, well, Pannavati, they love me and Pannavati, but sort of like just us two. And he said, well, if Black folks would just stop resisting the police, we wouldn't have these problems. And all of this talk about poverty, we all have the same opportunity. Why don't Black folks just go get a job? I said, you know what? You're not informed enough for us to have a conversation right now. I said, you go educate yourself and you come back and you talk to me. And he did. I mean, I think about 2 or 3 months later, he came back and he said, oh, Pannavati, he said, I'm so sorry I said those things to you. He said, I'm sorry I offended you. I said, you didn't offend me. I said, that was your ignorance showing. I said, but I'm okay with that. I'm happy that you've taken the time to do some research. Now we can have a conversation. And we sat down and we had a wonderful conversation. He'd been in my Sangha for 10 years. But when things started coming up, there was a certain perception, a certain way of looking and understanding life that he wasn't being mean about it, he wasn't being hateful about it. That's honestly the way that he saw it. But if I had not been able to handle that, then the outcome could have been very different. And we could have permanently lost one who sees and who understands. And so I'm saying this is a very difficult job, and it's incumbent upon us to do our work, to engage and cultivate ourselves in the teachings of the Buddha, so that when the opportunity presents itself for us to have a conversation, to have a dialogue, we can have it. There was a person in my Sangha, and she called us, and she was talking to me in Pannavati, and she was saying that she wanted to know, she was losing her friends, and she wanted to know how to get her friends back. And some of them had started sending death threats, and this was around when Obama was running for president. And so we asked her, well, what is it that you're really asking us? In all of your stories, what? Your friends are sending you death threats. And she says, I just want to have my friends back. We said, oh, well, then that's easy. Take the Obama sticker off your car. Stop coming to the Dhamma hall that's led by these two Blacks, and you'll have your friends back. She said, oh, thank you so much. And she did that, and she got her friends back. We'll meet her, bump against her in the store. I'm happy to see her whenever I do, and I don't hold that against her. I'm looking for the one who wants to make some movement, who wants to make some change, because if that one opens the door to creating more change amongst others. So they asked me, you probably know that Pannavati and I have a all-white Sangha, and we have for 15 years now. We live in a place that's about 2% African American, and and we live on the wrong side of town. So they were like, what are you doing living over there? Well, who knew? I came from DC. We didn't know that there was segregation in the way that it is when we moved here. We found the place we wanted and bought it and opened up, you know, but they're saying, oh no, well, if you live on that side of town, we can't trust you. You know, he says, over here, we have everything we need. We have a barber shop, we have a corner store, we have, you know, and so in their own minds, they were locked around the same idea of segregation as the whites in the community. And so that we knew that there was going to be a lot of work that had to be done. Nevertheless, I love what the Buddha teaches. He said that if you look at us, we have no distinguishing marks as human beings that make us different from one another. All the distinguishing factors are made up in our mind. And so we stand firm on that. And we've been here for 15 years now. And we have had, Democrats and we have Republicans, we have conservatives, we have progressives, we have liberals. This is who we are sent to, who we're committed to. I might have a whole different conversation if I had an all-Black Sangha, you know. So I feel that if a great deal of the work in opening up and understanding that it takes more than not being racist, but perhaps being anti-racist, against racism, the majority of that work needs to be done on the white side. So I'm in great shape. I'm in a great space right now because we can have this kind of dialogue, and we can have it over and through friendships. But you got to be ready for that kind of conversation. You have to know how to bring it up, how to facilitate it. You have to know how to cool the tempers down when the emotions start flaring. You have to be able to speak without blame, just understanding cause and condition. You have to recognize that both sides are caught up in certain kinds of conditioning, some from the time they came out of the womb. And you have to work with just the ignorance, the not knowing of people. And I tell you, I think more can be accomplished if we recognize and acknowledge the problem, but if we are committed to doing something beyond marching, something beyond protesting, something beyond even changing laws and rules. And we have enough laws on the books right now that we could really be living in a much more equal society. But it takes people to enforce the laws. So it's people, one-on-one, that we have to have the capacity to embrace and to work with. And that's where the paramitas come in, you know, just perfecting certain qualities and certain values so that one has the stamina, the stability, the endurance, the willingness, and qualities of compassion, and have the clarity, you know, to be able to stay with the issue, and the patience to deal with people who refuse to see, some who can't see. One time they asked me, I was part of helping to set in the Thai Bhikkhuni Sangha. And at the time, the whole world was sending letters of support saying, allow the women to ordain, allow the women to ordain. Well, you know, being Black, I know something about some things. You know, there's and I'll reference the Bible often because that is basically the spiritual authority, you know, of many African Americans in the United States, or Blacks in the United States. Well, I'll say African Americans, maybe not so much, you know, like Jamaican Americans or whatever, but I can speak for African Americans. And so there's a scripture in there that says, slaves, obey your masters in the Lord, for this is right. And then it goes down a little further and it says, but if you see an opportunity for your liberty, seize it. Okay, and so when they were writing letters saying to the Thai council, please let we want you to allow the Bhikkhuni Sangha to be revived. Like, I wasn't about to send no letters; they already said no. So what I did was I got on a plane and I went over there. And me and Dr. Lee and some Taiwanese sisters, we began ordaining them. Now you can't say they don't have any because we are ordaining them and they are there on Thai soil. And so after about 55, I stopped. That was enough. People could keep going on. And now there are hundreds of them there. Now, maybe they might not have the stature of the monks, but they are there, quietly doing their work, quietly setting their example, saw an opportunity for their liberty and seized it. And this is the way change is made. So they asked me one time, well, what do you think it'll take for the monks to allow women to ordain? And so we had monks on the platform as well. So it's not all monks, but I said, some are really from, like the real old school. Some of them just have to die off. We can have the patience to wait. We don't have to go into the street protesting and demanding our rights, but just quietly in our spaces doing what we do. And the community starts to see. In the beginning, they were saying, why do you want to be like men? Why do you want to be like monks? But now they're not saying that. They value the wisdom. They value the courage. They value the manners. They value, the walk of the bhikkhunis. And so their actions are speaking for them. And I think that this is an example of how we can be in the world, still holding to our dharmic values, and at the same time being a catalyst for change in the world. Now I can tell you, this is not a popular view in uh, in the West or in America. This is they don't want to hear this. They're thinking, yes, that message is in the Dhamma, but that's not the message to be giving today. Why is it not? I saw one. Um, I saw one protest. It was 60,000 people, 60,000. 60,000. That's a lot, and it was a completely silent protest. It was so powerful. What was not said was more powerful than some other places where things have been said that were contentious and demanding, or else what? I'll light your building on fire. I'll break into your stores and steal all of your products. Uh, it's a matter of where we find ourselves on the map. So I ask you today, where are you on the map? You could tell that I'm not timid. You could tell that I have a lot of views and a lot to say. You can tell that I've had some direct experience with the inequities of the society. When I was 13, I went to visit a friend in North Carolina, where I am now. Not this particular city and county, but in North Carolina. And I was born and raised in DC. And when I got off the train and walked down the platform, and a white lady was walking up, and we passed each other, and well, nothing. I don't know her. She doesn't know me. But that evening, the KKK came to my friend's house for me because I didn't know, but I was supposed to step off the platform. I mean, we didn't do that in DC when I was a child. I mean, we had our white water fountains and colored water fountains, things like that. That's how they were labeled, and it didn't matter because the colored water fountains weren't even operable, so you weren't going to get any water out of them anyway. So we didn't really care. We had our first floor theaters, and blacks had to sit up in the balcony. So we didn't really care because we liked the balcony. I even like sitting on the back of the bus. I just don't now because it seems to make a statement that I'm not making, But there were some things that we weren't aware of how serious an infraction culturally or in, that society it was. And so the girl's grandmother came out and he said, now, we don't want to have, a national incident. She doesn't know any better. She just came here from DC and they don't do that. She said, let me uh, chastise her. Let me correct her. Let me whip her. And then it'll be done. And we'll put her on a bus back home tomorrow. And they said, okay, but you have to do it outside. So she came outside and she calls it a switch, but I swear it was a branch. And she beat me out there. And she had to do it good because they were there for that. And the next morning, she did send me back home, and I never came back to North Carolina again. Now, my family's from North Carolina. They were sharecroppers, and they couldn't wait to leave North Carolina. But I was born in D.C. Do you know? My family. They didn't come down here to visit me. They couldn't understand why I was here. Even I didn't understand why. I just know that I don't want to hate anyone. That makes me no different from the one that I would be hating because they hate me. And so I had this deep desire in my heart to cultivate the kind of love for everyone that I want them to have for me. Now, you go further on the path and you're not so concerned about yourself. So I'm not looking for love. I have enough for myself anywhere I go. So when I walk into a place, sometimes when the emergence of the people of color songers were coming, they would ask me, what did I think? Nobody listened, but they asked me, what did I think? And I said, well, I don't think we should have POC groups. So I know I'm going to get some emails, and that's okay, But I said, I don't think we should have POC groups. I said, that's what some people want. You all meet separately over there. I think we should all stay together until we work this thing out. That's what I think. And so, of course, I have no need for a POC group, but I would go to different sanghas, and the first question they would ask me is, Pannavati, how do we get more Black people in our sangha? I say, how many do you know? How many do you hang out with? How many do you talk with at work? How many do you have over to your house? You can't just put up a sign that says Black folks want it. I mean, you can't do it, So I said, this is a personal thing with you. And when you cultivate or see a need to cultivate those relationships in your real life, not your Dhamma life, like when you come to the Dhamma hall once or twice a week, I said, then you won't have to ask me that question. And so this is, you can speak plainly and you can speak honestly to people. And if they want to hear it, but not without any angry energy, just an informative kind of energy. And some can listen and some can hear, and there's still going to be some who do not. So I say to you, the Buddha taught us to look at, to approach things that are happening in our society from a higher plane, from a more universal perspective. He didn't tell us to cower away when the Sakyans were they were constantly in battle with their neighbors over a body of water that rested between them. And he'd go down to the battlefield and say, come on, we don't have to fight. There's enough water for both sides. Why can't we share? And time again, he would avert a battle. But ultimately, they did have that battle. And the Sakyan clan lost, So I'm sure that many people then said, oh, well, the Buddha's Dhamma is no good because it didn't even help us win a war, But that's not what it is for. And so we have to understand what path we are on and what it really means to cultivate ourselves and how to take the eight worldly winds, the loss and the gain, the pleasure and the pain, the fame and the shame. We need to take everything that comes into our life, and hold it and try to see it through the lens of the Dharma to know how to handle it, how to use it as a catalyst for our growth and for our development. And then we become embodiers of the Dhamma. We embody the Dhamma. Sometimes it's what we will have the courage and the strength to say when all the other voices are shouting a different message. Sometimes it will be what we have the courage to not say, though although it could be said. It's where we choose and what we choose to think and ponder on continually, and whether it leads to more anxiety, more fear, and more hatred, or less anxiety, less fear, and less hatred. These are the choices that we have to make, not only every day, but every moment of the day. It's working within one's own family. So one day somebody asked me what could they do to help, because they really want to help. But the best thing you could do is to tell your Uncle Billy Bob to stop talking about niggas at the dining room table. Just say, we don't use that language here. I mean, who has the courage to say that? I mean, so sometimes we want to do these big things out here, but it's the little foxes that spoil the vine. And if we will just take our little steps, I have a novice, and I named her Toka Tokum. It means because she's always wanting to tackle the big things, but she's not strong enough, And so Toka Tokum means little by little, bit by bit. And that's her name. So every time I see her running off to do something, I say, Toka Tokum. And she said, oh, that's right. Little by little, bit by bit. And so that's how we can be. And more will get accomplished. There's you can Google it online. It's called Conversations with a Black Man, I think. And they have, and they're teaching. It's actually a teaching tool to teach Blacks and whites how to come together and to dialogue, or how to talk one-on-one, and really opening up about the issues. And I think it's a great teaching tool. It's called Conversations with a Black Man. And because I'm not into personalities so much, I don't know, but this is he's somebody in the maybe in the entertainment world, and he has entertainers on and others. I think this is just the third session. Another thing we can do is we can look up. Our Big Bodhi wrote a wonderful essay about a week ago, and he talked a bit about things that we need. He talked about stricter laws regulating police behavior. We absolutely need that. I'm looking at how on the news some this latest case is being handled of the man that was shot twice in the back in the Wendy's, and how much information came out of that. I've seen videos where they shot a black teen 16 times in the back, and somehow they thought that was reasonable force, and that it was a correct police action, and so it's not just stricter laws. We have laws that if they were carried out, they possibly could even be strict enough. But it is around the mental culture and the heart culture of individuals in our society. And that's where we have to put a lot of effort. I see the Black Lives Matter movement spreading globally because it is encompassing, the cares and the concerns of marginalized people from many different perspectives, not just color of their skin, but education and job disparity and housing disparity, and just a recognition that all people are not afforded the same opportunities that some people, some segment of the society enjoys. And so they're voicing their dissatisfaction, their disgruntlement with it. But I have to tell you, if you look through history, you'll see the countries arose and countries fell. The societies arose and societies fell. Ours will rise and ours will fall. There's no way to escape that. That's, and if we think that we're going to be able to stop it completely and that we'll have a utopia, a heaven on earth, then we don't understand that heaven is heaven and earth is earth. And that there is a reason why we are in this samsaric experience, And so there's so many things that come into it. And the Buddha said we didn't have to sort it all out and keep track of my time. I used to be Pentecostal. If it was all night, it was all right. So, okay, I got my eye on the time. And so we have to be cognizant that there are going to be, here's my point. If the tables are like this, if we make them like this, he said, all we do is set up for the one who lost to try to gain supremacy again and come back. So our responses have to have a certain kind of modulation and moderation that doesn't make it like a seesaw, but that will gradually bring it so it becomes like this, like this, like this, until we're like this, And so we have to use that wisdom, put that wisdom together. I think the Dhamma points us to it. Just the right balance of compassion and wisdom, and our surrendering to that, surrendering to compassionate wisdom, truth, saying, I want to know more. Right now we're saying, I think this, I think that, I demand this, and I demand that. But what if we said, I surrender to you, compassionate wisdom, truth, I want to know more. We could say, drench my soul as mercy and grace unfold. What kind of groundwork would we be establishing for that? This is inner work that has to take place. And I'm asking you today, where are you on the Dhamma map? Find yourself. It doesn't matter if you don't like where you are. It doesn't matter if you don't like what's rising up and what you see. But the thing is, it takes a radical kind of honesty to find yourself. And every time I'm looking at someone else and pointing my finger, I'm seeing where in some ways I'm just like them. In some ways I'm thinking certain thoughts that are unreasonable, that are hostile, that are cruel, that don't speak for what I say, I believe, and I embrace. The thing is that the bad folks are better at being bad than good folks are at being good. I think it's because they really believe their badness works, but I'm not so sure we believe our goodness works. And so what do you really embrace? What do you really hold true? These are the questions that I want to ask you to take into your meditation today. It's not about who are they. It is who am I? What do I bring to this pivotal moment in time? What wisdom can I share from the Dhamma? And what can I embody from the Dhamma that can be known, that can be recognized, that can be seen, that will elevate and that will lift us, that will posit us where we want to be as a society, as a people, as a species? That is the question. He talks about mindfulness, for sure. He calls it the foundations. Now, I used to be a builder, and we build the foundation first. And how well that house goes up, how steady that house is, and how long it can stand depends on how well we did the foundation. It took more time for us to put in the foundation than to build the whole rest of the house. And sometimes in that foundation, we had to put a sump pump because there were underground springs and water would creep in to begin to erode and destroy the foundation. And so he gives us a very thorough training on the foundations of mindfulness. But in Sutta number 62, 62 in the Majjhima Nikaya, he was talking with his son. His son asked him what kind of mindfulness of breathing would be of great fruit and great benefit. And I think you go halfway through the sutta before you get to anything he says about mindfulness of breathing. He talked about first laying aside, the cares of the world, the information that we're taking in through the senses and the resultant feelings. He said right there, you're not clear, you're not stable, you can't enter into a kind of peace out of which wisdom flows. He said, so the first thing you have to do is think of yourselves like the earth, the air, the fire, the water, the space. He said you can throw dirty things on them. You could spit in the wind. You could even urinate in the water and it's not offended. It's not humiliated. So if you're responding from offense, from humiliation, we know now's not the time to respond. He says one has to get still first. Has to really set aside, lay aside the cares. And he said, and then let your meditation be like that. And so as we begin to focus and direct our attention on whatever it is we want to focus and direct our attention on, to the exclusion of everything else, we come to penetrate into that deeper and deeper and deeper until we know it all together. And then there'll be no such thing as mob mentality. What you go out there to do, that you do. And what you don't want to do, that you don't do. There is an answer, there is a solution, there is a way that we can contain ourselves and that we could show our highest qualities and character of being. And it will not go without notice. And so then he went on and told me, and after you do that, then he said, then meditate. Now here comes that concentration. Meditate on loving kindness, because when you do it, ill will be uprooted. He said, meditate on compassion, because when you do, cruelty will be uprooted. How am I going to get somebody to meditate on loving kindness and compassion when we can't even have a conversation? How can they even know that there's the possibility for change and for a shift in them if we don't have a chance to sit down and have a discussion? It's easy to love people that love you. Can you love people that don't love you? That's the question. We have to ask ourselves that question. And it's not for the weak or for the faint of heart. It's for ones who are determined to walk the path to its end. So I had a lot that I wanted to share with you and get in. This may not have been the talk that many of you were looking for, but I am a great believer in each one, teach one. I'm a great believer in find your own deliverance, your own freedom. And when you have that, reach down and grab somebody and bring them up too. I'm a great believer that words like country, national, city, council, family, they're just words, but they are made up of individuals. I'm a great believer that whatever we think and ponder on becomes the inclination of our mind. Doesn't mean that we overlook a situation or we can't see it. It just means that we don't have to devolve down into it to the exclusion of seeing anything possible on the other side. I'm a great believer in not categorizing all white folks the same way I don't want to be categorized by white folks like all Black folks. I'm a great believer, you know, that what we think, what we say, and what we do, you know, is the most important aspect of moving and having our being in the world, and that needs to be aligned with what we say we embrace, what we say we believe. You know, we don't talk that much about faith in the Buddhist circles because I don't think we really understand what that means. But it means to have a certain confidence, you know, in the teachings, a certain confidence in the experience as it being real, being true, being of high quality. I have confidence in the Dhamma, not because I've experienced everything that there is to experience, not because I understand everything that's being shared there, but what I have taken up of it has proven itself worthy in my life. Therefore, I have the confidence to hold those things that could be a little bit of a challenge, you know, or when I'm moving to that frustrated side, I go and I find something to shore me back up, to lift me back up, to balance me back out so that I can be beneficial and useful, to become more skillful. But it starts first with me looking at myself. Who do I choose to be in this world? So I think I would like to end right there. And if there are any questions or comments, I would like to go ahead and open up the floor. However you can do that, Venerable. I'm not sure because there's so many people on. And then I wanted to set aside perhaps 20 minutes that we could take this in and meditate on who we are in the family of the awakened ones.
Thank you very much, Venerable, for this wonderful talk. How we normally do the questions is like you can either put it in the chat box to me and then I will read it out. Or if you can also go to the bottom, at the bottom you have some buttons. If you go to participants and then at the bottom there you can see raise hand, so you can do that, and then Amina will unmute you and then I'll call you out when you can just talk about your question in person. If you do so, please note it will be recorded, but we will not record your video. We will only record your voice. So if anybody has any questions, please go ahead, either raise your hand or put it in the chat box.
Thank you very much for your talk, Venerable. I'm studying in Germany, but I'm actually from Kentucky. And so I have a lot of friends from all over the political spectrum because I grew up in a small town in Kentucky. And then I joined the Peace Corps and I know a lot of social activist friends. I can say that both sides of the spectrum have had a lot of anger and frustration. It all bled over into me because I see all the posts like the brutality and all the things happening in America, and then I'm disconnected because I'm all the way in Germany. And so I was frustrated for about 2 weeks about like not being able to do anything. At least that's how it felt. And then I kind of reached the same conclusion that you've been talking about the entire talk, about having compassion and people you don't like is like very difficult, and how you should try to do what you can with compassion. And so I've been trying to see like how I can help America's institutional problems without taking a giant bite like you warned against. and try to do it compassionately. And it took me a long time, like 2 weeks, to figure out just that first step that you've mentioned. And so I really appreciate another person coming from that perspective. And I guess it's mostly a comment, because I would like to also add, I do miss the American preaching style you kind of give to your Dhamma talk, because I've not heard that, and it gave me like a little taste of home. And I really like that.
Thank you. You bring up a good point, because there's a lot of blaming going on right now, and I don't think the blaming is particularly useful, particularly about lumping everybody into one basket. But I do ask each one to check in with themselves to see if they are in a space of avoidance, or as opposed the feeling that they must do something, and people are telling you, then if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, but one has to have one's own wisdom, and they have to know where they stand inwardly. I mean, some things I can even understand. We talk about the COVID and being out during the protests, but I'm going to tell you, my honest opinion is, if COVID was not going out, we wouldn't have had the mass. I don't feel that we would have had the mass demonstrations we had, because on day number 1, perhaps, day number 2, maybe, day number 3, day number 8, day number 12, it's like, I understand and I'm for your cause, but I got to go to work because I have a family I have to feed. And so, just the fact that there was so much, so many people out of work, so many people that, any reason to get out. I think that's a good cause. I'm going out today. I had to talk to one of my students because he wanted to go out, and his wife was begging him not to go out. And he says, I feel torn because I feel like that's my responsibility. I said, you married her. She's your responsibility. If she doesn't want you to go, I think you should listen to her. Before you start trying to save the world, what can you do within your own household? And so, sometimes, and I mean, he really wanted to go. I mean, he was crying because he wanted to be a part of this. But there are ways that we can still be a part of it, and not have to feel an extreme guilt and shame because we're not doing what some people are doing. And so I say, just know where you are. And if you're not where you should be, deal with yourself. Get better right there. Go into the Dhamma. Meditate. One reason I love so many of the Vajrayana meditations is because they have a way of helping to build and cultivate the heart. There's one of thinking of all beings as your kind mother. There's one of accepting defeat and giving the victory to others. And what that does is it takes some of the aggression out of the heart and out of the mind. We can't always win. We're in one of these kind of worlds that here you will not always win. And so what does it feel like to accept defeat? When you know what defeat is like, then you understand why the opposing party is fighting so hard, because they don't want to accept defeat either. It's these kinds of ways we can come to a reckoning within ourselves, and that will improve our own mental state and our own heart state, and we can be part of the solution without so many outer types of participation. But I am grateful for the ones who went out, because it did make a statement. I don't know how much of a statement it made in some circles. That today is Juneteenth, and the president was giving a rally right there in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where the greatest massacre of Blacks occurred. Okay, so they made a compromise. They won't do it today. We'll do it tomorrow. And so to not interfere with our celebration day. But they've instituted a curfew. So on our very celebration day, we have to be home before dark, so that they can have a rally. So the things are so subtle, you know, and you have to really see and know what's going on and what's happening. And so in effect, our day of celebration which came several years after we were freed from slavery, becomes a non-day of celebration. And I don't think that was not by design. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Is anybody else who want? Do I have? Yeah, my microphone is on. Amina, I can't. Anybody else who wants to raise a question or a comment? Okay, yeah, there's a couple coming through. Here's one question. Thank you for talking about this matter related to marginalized people in general. I understand the rage people have with what is going on, but I have a difficult time when my African friends said to me, I don't support the movement, I'm with the oppressors. I come from Malaysia, where there's huge race marginalization and oppression. So it's not I don't support the movement, I have a different fight.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for that comment. It seems at the moment to be that many people around the world are embracing it as a symbol of their own fight. You know, and instead of us having 20 or 30 different things that we're raising, it has sort of fallen under this banner of Black Lives Matter as a symbol of oppression in many different areas. So sometimes we can think of one person's fight is our fight. You know, one person's victory, you know, is our victory. And if we could think in those terms, like in the, I think right now in this particular century, if we look at the westernized world, race is an issue. If we look in the Eastern worlds, caste or sex are the issues. But it's still about man's inhumanity to man. It's around new forms of slavery, you know, like just the prison system, you know, and the pipeline from school to jail. It's just a different form of slavery, but slavery nonetheless. And so I think if you could understand it in that way, then you could see that a fight for the freedom or just standing beside them for what they're fighting for is also to gather a family of people who are wanting to be liberators of all oppression. And today it might be Black Lives Matter. Tomorrow it might be Dalit Lives Matter. You know, then we talk about all lives matter, and yes, they do. But like I heard someone say, you know, there are many kinds of viruses, but the coronavirus right now is the one that is doing a serious amount of damage. And this movement is not new. It's been going on for a long time, years and years and years. It's just having its pop-up moment, and it just happened to come at a time, I think, when a lot of different things were converging, including dissatisfaction over coronavirus, and it gave people an outlet for expression to say the world needs to change.
Thank you, Venerable. I have another question here on the chat. do you have advice for addressing remorse over past actions or thoughts that were racist, microaggressions, or at best clueless?
Yes, I do. And some of this can be inner and some of it can be outer. You know, we have to have the capacity, the same compassion that we want to give to others. We have to be able to give to ourselves. I think you should sit there and sit with the feelings and sit with everything that's coming up. See it thoroughly, understand it thoroughly, not making an excuse for oneself, but really being with. But you know, flagellation has no real value. So other than seeing it, understanding it, and uprooting it, we're not just whipping ourselves. I'm so unworthy just for the sake of doing it. But when one knows within oneself that they have honestly recognized and acknowledged, they have stopped doing some things they were doing. They have a different view. You know, a different view can be instantaneous. You know, you look at what's the monk Panyadeep, what's the monk that had the fingers? The monk that had the fingers of the people that he killed. Right, Angulimala. You know, I mean, in a moment, there was a transformation. And we could say, well, Angulimala, he didn't suffer enough. Of course, I think they did kill him at the end, you know, but he didn't care whether they killed him or not. The thing is, he knew within himself he had made a change, you know, and he become one who went from cursing to one who was blessing. So just make sure that's true about you from the inside, you know. But if there's an opportunity for a dialogue, you know, then you can have that dialogue. And when you think you're ready to have it, you know, then you know, you can broach the subject. But what I want to say is you need to really be ready, because folk will tell you right now, don't come with a half-hearted apology. Don't, you know, that's not the time. You need to be strong and you need to be willing to hear their response. And it might not be, okay, I forgive you and I love you now. It might, can you handle it if you don't get the desired respect out of your acknowledgement? Then you'll know where you are and you need to go back and sit a little bit more. But don't beat yourself up. You know, I'm just saying, just see clearly and know and take the appropriate action, whether it's received from the outside or not.
Thank you, Venerable. Then there is a question from Tara. I think you want to raise it yourself. Can you unmute yourself? You should be able to unmute yourself, Tara. Okay. Okay, that was already the question that was raised earlier. Okay. I just get a message through from Amina that was the question. Is there anybody else who has a question?
Okay, so I think we have 14 minutes left, and I know you usually meditate a little longer than that. And your mind might even be busy and racing because of the conversation and some of the comments or some of the thoughts moving through your mind right now. But it's a great opportunity to practice, isn't it? That we can, right in the midst of all of the chaos or the confusion or the mixed views, if one learns to stop right there and drop right in to the stillness, it's a practice, and concentration has a great benefit for us in being able to still our mind. Not steal it, but to still, S-T-I-L-L it, no matter what might be happening, not only on the outside, but what might be rolling through one's mind on the inside. It's a kind of submission and a kind of humility that we offer up to the Dhammas and to the great exemplars of the Dhamma to show us what we are capable of, that we can still our heart and mind and drop into a deeper awareness of reality, and that we can know things by heart, that there is a capacity for a great intuition that will guide us according to the truth that is in us. And so just taking a deep breath in and out, and now breathing naturally, shifting our awareness to the breath as it is, whether it's short or long, whether it's warm or cool, whether it's jagged or smooth. Just focusing and bringing our attention to the body of breath. Noticing how it strengthens our capacity to diminish and curtail so much thought, that it allows us to move inward to a kind of quiet and stillness that informs. And as we begin to settle down and be peaceful, gladdening the mind. If I say to myself, I shall put on a happy face, then shall my countenance be changed. Being willing to be contented. Even in the face of adversity, arousing patience to resolve matters. Recognizing everyone has a view. It's based on their life and their patterns. And just creating a container and a space for conversation around that. Who knows? We may be able to offer something that completely shifts a person's view. And as one sister said, you know, I'm hurting, but I'm hurting about something else. So holding space for that one who doesn't have time for your problem right now because they have their own. Can you offer them out of your own heart some recognition. Can you accept that they may be hurting deeply in another way? Seeing all living beings as oneself. When I make a mistake, when I err, I want someone to forgive me and let me try again, that one mistake is not the sum total of who I am. Can you offer that kind of acknowledgement in some situation in your life where you're holding a grudge, where you're accusing? Can you take that dagger out of the person's chest and instead administer aid? What will you render for all of the benefits you do have in your life? Can you arouse a sense of great gratitude for what you do have? Can you recognize that most of it wasn't because of your own efforts, but because of opportunities that have been afforded that you really had nothing to do with? You say, so don't blame me. I didn't set it up. And that's true. But recognize that the privilege is there nevertheless. How steady will your heart be if leveling the playing field means you have to give up something in order for somebody else to have something? Are you willing to go that far? Just know how far you can go today, maybe further tomorrow. Give to yourself the love that you want to receive from others. You have enough for yourself. Wash yourself right now with that love and acceptance. And when you know that you fully accept yourself, then start to examine where you can make changes, where you need to make changes, where you wish to make changes. If you develop this very deeply, you'll be able to be in anybody's presence, regardless of how you think they feel about you. And you'll fill to overflowing, and your love will pour out blessings upon others without you even trying. May you be well and happy and peaceful. May no harm come to you and no danger. May you always be able to meet the inevitable difficulties of life. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So thank you so much for tuning in. And I left a couple of minutes in case you need to take care of any administrative matters.
So yes, one thing I want to say, if anybody wants to support Ayya Pannavati, then please look at the website. I'll just put it in the chat right now. I hope I have that good. Oh, it might be an edit. Hold on. Yes, that's the right. So please look on the website, and there's also information how you can donate, also to the various projects that Venerable Pannavati is involved in. So, and then I thank you all for coming and for joining here, and Venerable Pannavati, heartfelt thank you from all of us for, well, first of all, very late notice for this talk, and yeah, and speaking about these very important issues, and for me, it's definitely, I have to rewatch the tape a bit more, one more time at least, to really take it all in. So thank you so much.